For any of those of you who might have missed it just a little bit earlier when we were talking about it in that other segment, I totally missed this back in 2022. I don't know how. I think I heard people talk about it, but maybe I've just forgotten about it. But in 2022, people looked in the remake of The Last of Us Part 1, and there were some things that were changed. I mean, some things that were actually rebuilt. And one of them was a section in the game that you can come across as Joel, and it showcases a cork board with a bunch of art on it that was not in the original game. Oh, that's funny. Joel Raptor's even commenting on this. That's funny. So Joel Raptor did a video on it. And then it looks like in The Last of Us Part 2, there's also other stuff. We'll get to that in a minute because it looks like the same pictures popped up there. So we'll get there. But basically these images are of like, a dragon with a character standing in front of it. If we cycle forward, a girl in a forest with like this dramatic moon and then like a deer looking thing. Some close-ups of the others. It's almost like a phoenix right there. So a lot of people looked at this. Some people are like, no, it's not a big deal. It's basically just the comic book that you see in the game that Ellie references a couple of times. It's nothing more. Maybe it's like one of the movie franchises that they talk about all the time. It's just set dressing. It's nothing too dramatic. There's also this. So you see this area, just check for this apartment house on the left and you'll find this. Sadly, I can't do it because I lost my save. Oh yeah, the D&D table. That's really fun. Yeah, I remember coming across that. It's super fun. But here, they have the same images in The Last of Us Part 2. So some people have looked at these and been like, oh my God, this is their next game. They're doing a fantasy game. Here we go. Buckle up, buckaroo. Maybe. The reason this stands out is because a lot of these studios, if they're going to put something in the game, it was an intentional thing. Like somebody had to go to the trouble of choosing this asset and placing it here. It's the same thing like, oh, if you're going to put a bookshelf and a desk, that's not a big deal. But this wall would have looked just fine without a picture on it. So they went to the trouble of adding that and then putting these pictures together. And then in The Last of Us Part 1, they go through and all the pictures are gathered together as well. So people have looked at this and been like, okay, it's a very intentional thing. If you do reverse image searches on this, which I've tried to do, Google can't find any reverse image searches for this particular thing. So it's not like they're pulling it off of like a Getty Images or something like that they're using as a stock photo. This is something seemingly an artist actually created within Naughty Dog, and they've chosen to place it in 2 different games, which is interesting because it could just be, one thing I remember hearing about, this was like in a documentary, I think on the creation of like Oblivion or the like Fallout New Vegas or something. But I remember hearing about an artist within the studio that did like sketches and drawings just for fun, just to kind of stretch the creative muscle. And they put some of their own work into the game they were working on. Just because they needed more artwork to put in it. So they just put some of their own stuff in there. So it's possible that this is just something like that, where it's just one of the developers or one of the artists did this cool concept art, cool picture or something that they thought was cool as like a phone background or something. And they're like, yeah, sure, put it in the game. Why not? That's fun. And they didn't think of it much beyond that, and now it's just gamers coping and being like, no, it's totally intentional. It's symbolizing something. Who knows? We don't know. But it is interesting that it pops up in 2 separate games and it seems very intentionally placed. It's very, very interesting. There's also been rumors that Naughty Dog is working on something different. They are working probably on The Last of Us Part 3. But it sounds like what Neil Druckmann's working on right now is something significantly different. Could be a misnomer, could be a red herring. They might have just been implying that to get people to calm down. But it seems like they wanted to maybe try something really different after The Last of Us Part 2 to take a little breather. And so it could make sense. If they're going to do something different from The Last of Us Part 2, what's like the most different thing you could possibly do from The Last of Us Part 2? Like a magic fantasy game. That's pretty much the opposite. I mean, you could say like Hello Kitty Island Adventure or something. That's quite opposite. But within Naughty Dog's talent set, I think it would make sense for them to perhaps look into a kind of dark and gritty fantasy game that could be just totally different for the team. Because if you watch the Grounded 2 documentary on the making of The Last of Us Part 2, the kind of common thread through all of that is that everybody was miserable making that game. And by the time they finished it, they were like, oh my God, we gotta chill. Like, this was too much. We got to do something different. So I think it would make sense if they were trying to do something just really different, to let the team try something that they haven't gotten to do ever, or at least in a very long time. Could make sense. Most likely, this is just a freaking picture, and it's nothing more than that. And the reason it's in 2 games is because they had the assets already built, and they just copy and pasted them over while they were set dressing. Probably what it is. That's my guess. But damn, it would be fun if it were real. Sure would. I don't know. What sound off in chat. I want to know, do you guys think this is cap or not? What's this? Is it cap or hat? Is hat real? I don't know what the opposite of cap is while still sticking to the slang. Do you think this is real, or do you think it's just a nothing burger? If I had to put money on it, if I had to put a $5 bill on it, I think just for the fun of it, I'd put it on and say this is like an early artwork for a project they're working on. I think I'd say that it's probably not just a coincidence, because this is a lot of effort to go to put something in the game that has nothing to do with anything. But I would not put more than $5 on it, because I don't think that I don't think that this is that conclusive of a leak or reveal or anything. No cap? Oh, duh. Yeah, it's cap or no cap. Duh. Oh my God, I'm such a boomer. Anyway, yeah, too much coffee. Yeah, no fantasy ever. I think they do fantasy. I think they would just do like really gory, intense fantasy. I think it would just be like on the level of Game of Thrones or something like that. Nothing cool happens anymore. Some kid of a dev made it. He smuggled it in. Dude, that would be better than if this were like a leak for something. If this was like a kid's artwork or something they did for school, and then they snuck it in. That'd be fun. They did it before. I think it's no cap. Yeah. I mean, the one example was like Ellie's mom. Let me see if I can find this original image. There was like a reference to Ellie's mom in the first game that was brought up in the sequel. What's another instance of them doing this though that I could pull up as an example? Do you guys know of the dome? So this is crazy. There is in fact a reference in Uncharted 3. At the beginning of the game, after the bar fight, a newspaper can be seen near the dartboard. The newspaper talks about how scientists are struggling to understand a new plague of fungus. And this is, of course, a reference to Naughty Dog at the time's upcoming title, The Last of Us. The newspaper's design and title also reference the popular British newspaper, The Guardian, which is funny. But as you can see, scientists are still struggling to understand deadly fungus. So they did do little things like this where they hinted at it. I think this is, at least from a distance, it looks like a picture of the, he's like the president of Naughty Dog. What's his name? Wells? Like Brian Wells or something? Evan Wells. I was close. Kind of looks like him. Yeah, Uncharted 4 has Last of Us references too. Yeah, like, it makes sense that they would do something like this. This particular thing is, we're looking at a picture and being like, okay, so that's their next project. It might be. It could also just be reference to the fantasy thing that Ellie likes, or they could be a crossover where like Ellie likes this, but then they make a game based off of it. But to me, like the reason I would wager that this is probably more likely real and an actual hint at something than fake or just a coincidence is because this is a lot of effort to go to create this image for no purpose other than just for poops and giggles. And I would just be surprised if it's totally unrelated. Like, this is a high production piece of art. Maybe an artist on the team just put it together for fun, but I think you'd be able to find it through like reverse image searches and stuff. Like even with this, if I go image, paste, and we search for this image, find image source, like it couldn't find any. And if somebody created this artwork and put it on like their, I don't know, their Instagram or wherever they might have posted this art, and then they were like, oh yeah, and I'll also put it in the game as some decorative stuff, we would be able to find it, and you can't. So it's like they created this really high production piece of art for fun, and it didn't get out anywhere. An intern just did that. I don't think much of anything gets in a game like The Last of Us Part 1 or The Last of Us Part 2 without it being approved. Like Todd Howard has talked about how like there's tons of stuff in Starfield he's never seen before, and there's tons of stuff that he has no idea about, and he's always excited to try new things because he doesn't know what he's going to find. I don't think most of these big companies work like that. I think a lot of them have higher standards. This was also a fun little tidbit. Somebody found the bar from Uncharted 3 brought over into The Last of Us Part 1. So it's like the same layout and everything. It was just kind of fun. A little Easter egg. I don't even think it's like a copy and pasted asset because it looks like they had to rebuild the entire thing. So it's not even like just a copy and paste or an instance of recycling, but it's a little reference if you notice it. Just kind of fun. It's kind of fun. And anyway, I would put $5 on it being an actual hint at a future game. But the great thing is in like 5 years or 10 years, whenever we see whatever they're working on next, we'll be able to look back at this and be like, oh look, Luke was purely delusional and thinking that was real. Or we'll be like, wow, he knew. How did he know? He didn't. I thought that was cool. I just totally blanked that, forgot about that, and then I only remembered it, or we only found it when Max Scoville brought it up in that video. So what do you think? Leave it in the comments, I guess, if you think that that's real, if you're gonna buy it or not. Lucas the Psychic confirmed. That's what I'm saying, dude. I knew you were gonna say that. He took my thing.